KASHISH is South Asia's biggest queer film festival. We started in 2010, and over the last 6 years, we have been screening films. Almost this year, we're going to screen 180 films from 44 countries. But the idea was also to kind of broad base the understanding of LGBT issues and LGBT lives. So we are trying to kind of this year, and the theme is reaching out, touching hearts. So we thought it's important to really not just talk about cinema, show films, but also have panel discussions. This year we're actually doing a book reading at Max Mueller Bhavan, and we're also having an art exhibition at Gallery Beyond, which is just a walk away from here. So we are trying to kind of do different activities which could kind of appeal to different audience segment who want to kind of have a formulate understanding of LGBT lives through books, cinema, and art. We are all here to have a chat with our celebrated author and a dear friend Sandip Roy, who lives partly in the USA and partly in Kolkata. So we're really privileged to have Sandip Roy with us, but most importantly, I would rather hand the mic over to Parmesh Shahani, who's a dear friend and a great supporter of KASHISH. He is the head of Goddess Culture Lab and their author. I mean, he's written the book Gay Bombay, and thank you so much, Parmesh, for facilitating this particular event.
The way this evening is going to flow is I'm going to ask Sandip a bunch of questions. In between these questions, he'll read excerpts from his book, and at some point, if we're tired of talking to each other, we'll open it up to questions from the audience. When we do, please remember to ask questions, and then allow Sandip to answer, yeah? If you have mobiles and things like that with you right now, it's great to take them out and point them at us and take pictures and post them on Facebook, Twitter, etc. It's not cool to like start talking on the phones. Yeah. With that, Sandip, there's a key moment in one of the stories where Sumit asks Avinash this question when they're on the terrace, and Sumit asks him, "But are you happy?" So before you tell us about the characters, I want you to tell me about yourself. Are you happy at this moment in your life?
At this moment, sitting here on stage at KASHISH in Mumbai, of course I'm happy. I'm very, very happy. No, but I am happy, you know, and I think unlike in a movie where it ends with happily ever after, but we always have the after. So, you know, happiness is a work in progress.
Are you happy with how the book has done? It's been a hit. It's been a blockbuster. It's been.
Again, no, I am happy because you know you've written a book as well, and I've worked as a journalist and interviewed writers and all the time, but then once you actually do it yourself, it's like a most naked feeling ever, because you know you've written a book of fiction, and as long as it was safe in the recesses of your computer's hard drive, it was just yours, and you could like play with it and think, and you could read other books and think like, oh, my book's better than that, but nobody had to be the judge of it except you. And then you suddenly put it out into the world and people start reading it and reviewing it, and it's actually quite nerve-wracking.
You've also been, and a lot of people have called you the gay Jhumpai Lahiri. How does that make you feel?
You know, she's very pretty, so that's okay. Some of the parts of this book actually predate Jhumpai Lahiri, so it's like, older than her. In fact, and you know, when people say that, I'm like, you know, people feel the need to describe you in terms of something that's already out there, which is perfectly within their right. When I write it, I don't think of myself as gay anybody.
Yeah, so if I can request you to read one excerpt, perhaps the scene that I spoke about earlier, which is on the terrace.
The little room was almost exactly as Sumit remembered it. The door cracked with streaky green paint faded by sun and rain. Amit opened the door. It creaked on rusty hinges, as if it had indeed not been opened in years. Sumit reached around and turned on the light, a naked light bulb dangling from a wire. The room was full of junk, as Avinash had warned. He slowly turned back to look at Avinash, who just stared at him as if he had been changed into stone. Avinash opened his mouth as if about to say something, but just then a voice behind them said, "There you are." Turning around, they saw Romola had come upstairs. Sumit wondered how much she had heard.
Thank you. Sandeep, so much of your book, including this particular excerpt you read, is about what is unsaid and what is unacknowledged in Indian families and in our lives, right? Secrets and parallel lives, in a sense, are the glue of our families more than that, of others. Since we're at Kashish, tell me, what is it that you would like us to talk about in Indian families? What would you like us to say instead of not say, and acknowledge instead of not acknowledge?
Well, I have to say that they're two different things, right? I mean, in terms of writing a book, as a writer, you are drawn to the unacknowledged and the unsaid because it is a minefield and it is sort of rich and pregnant with possibilities of interpretation and misinterpretation. And whereas, in a way, a festival like Kashish is about breaking those silences, so that so that some of these things that people cannot talk about, that you're able to talk about, because you even, one of the wonderful things about films is it gives you an excuse to talk about the things that you can't talk about in your real life, because they're too close and too personal, but you can talk about it in terms of this film Far Away.
Didn't you want to put a little bit of that mundane, maybe not deliriously happy, but like, kind of content gay life into it as well?
Perhaps if I was writing a book that was, trying to show different facets of gay life, this was about actually one particular man who doesn't, I don't even know what Avinash calls himself, but he ends up in a very particular time of our cultural development where he ends up, there was no kashish for him to go to. He ends up marrying, he has a relationship as far as we know with this one guy, Sumit. And then at some point when it feels like then they can't connect, he ends up getting married, which I don't think is a very uncommon story. Well, certainly not then and sadly not even now. I mean, in this book is really about secrets. Like each chapter of the book is like a standalone short story, but they're all about the same people and they're all about secrets. And while the secret of this man's sexuality might be the biggest, darkest secret in the book, all the characters have their own secrets, and some secrets are pleasurable secrets. Some secrets are forbidden pleasures, like somebody who sneaks off to have a McDonald's hamburger, and some secrets are ones that are devastating to the family. But this is a story also about a happy family, not that unlike mine, and yet everybody in that family is tiptoeing around these secrets.
Okay, so my question is about stringing the different pieces of the book together, right? You did write this linear. They all kind of appeared in at least many of them appeared in different places at different times over the past few years. So how did you make it seem? But yet, when you read it, it's so complete.
Well, I have to embarrassingly first admit that some of it was unintentional. What happened was I was working on what I thought was stories, and they had different characters in them. Some of the stories were written in first person. Some had appeared in this anthology or the other with other characters' names, and somebody read some of those and said, "You're just really writing about the same people. You've just given them different names, or you're writing in first person, but they're really about the same people." And for a moment I was really traumatized because I thought like, oh my god, my scope of imagination is obviously very limited because I was thinking I'm writing about all these different characters, but I'm really writing about the same three people over and over again. But once I got over that realization and shock, I realized that what was happening was I was kind of cool because I was writing these pieces of, it was like a jigsaw puzzle that I had been putting together without realizing it was a jigsaw puzzle, so there were like these pieces already there. So then I really liked the idea that this would be a book where you could open it and you could look at the titles and say like, oh, this thing called The Gifts of Summer or The Discipline of Haircuts sounds interesting. And you can just read The Discipline of Haircuts and you should be able to read it as a fully self-contained story, more or less. But if you were to read them in sequence, then it added a little more because you understand a little more about the motivations, or if Romola makes a very barbed comment at some point, you understand that it's not as innocent as it sounds. And we, or at least I, have all grown up around plenty of people who make very innocent sounding comments but which have a little dagger in the tail that are meant to. And so that was the idea where the chapters are complete but they cast shadows on each other. And as you go along the book, the shadow gets longer and you get a more richer understanding of them. So then it became structurally, it was tricky at the end to sort of maintain each chapter as a whole, and yet, some of the things I had to just remember that, a house that comes back was green in one chapter, but yellow suddenly, and I'm like, okay. And also characters, minor characters, or you have to remember when, say, Romola's father died at one point, so that you make sure he doesn't embarrassingly appear at the time of her wedding, when in fact he had died when she was 9 years old. Things like that became.
You made a map and with timelines and things
Yeah,
like that?
I did do a little map, and I did a little timeline and sort of plotted them and moved them around. But it was actually, in the end it became fun because it was, I have friends who've done these timeline things and they get like tortured, they have like papers all over their house and reading. But it was kind of fun because it was really like a jigsaw puzzle, and you felt as a writer, it was nice sort of knowing the backstory of your characters so that when they say you added a little charge.
If I can ask you to read one more excerpt, perhaps about this particular incident.
It's called The Discipline of Haircuts, and it's a backstory of when Avinash is a young man. And he used to hate having his hair cut. And this part is true about me. I used to actually hate getting my hair cut. And so then one day, soon after Avinash's 14th birthday, everything changed. He had gone to New Modern Salon, air conditioned, for his monthly ritual and found to his surprise a new face. He was much younger than any of the other barbers there. As soon as Avinash saw him, he saw a vision of Father Rosario's scowling face. The fellow looked just like the no-good loafer boys they had all been warned about. His hair was long, way over his collar, and in the front it was poofed exactly like a Hindi film star. What was even more shocking was that he had left not one, not two, but 3 buttons open on his dark blue shirt. In their school, Orijit had been given a C grade for leaving 2 buttons open. Avinash could see the hair on the barber's chest and a thin golden chain nestling in it. Harish Babu said, "This is Sultan. He's here because Lakshman Babu had to go to his home in Bahrampur. His son was hit by a scooter." Avinash tried to look concerned, but his eyes were hypnotized by the golden chain. He sat down on the chair. When Avinash saw Harish Babu coming towards him with his scissors, he almost cried out, "No!" He didn't know why and he didn't know how to say it without making a complete fool of himself. Smiling. "Isn't it hot?" "Yes," Avinash replied. "Yes, it is." His words came out as a squeak. But with those words, Avinash had a feeling that he had just taken a huge hatchet and hacked away the ropes that tied his boat to the shore, and he was now floating away uncontrollably into the ocean.
Thank you, Sandip. Thank you, Kashish. And thank you for being an excellent audience. Thank you.